Hey everyone, my name is Morey. So today I'm going to talk about Apple Watch and notifications, which to me is the killer feature of Apple Watch. How many of you guys have watches? Awesome. Any of you have Pebbles before the Apple Watch? Any Android Wear? Yeah, so obviously this is an iOS dominated conference, so Apple Watch should be the dominant player. But I'm really into the Apple Watch, I was really into Pebble, and notifications are really the feature that sells me on it. So I'm going to spend the next 45 minutes talking to you about notifications, show you why I think it's a killer feature, and kind of show you how to build custom notifications on the Apple Watch. And so hopefully by the end of the talk, you'll also agree with me and want to have notifications in your app, not just any notifications, but custom notifications. So I work at MJD in San Diego. It's a digital agency, iOS, Android, web work. It's in San Diego. I run the engineering team there. Talk to me if you're interested afterwards. I'm also on the Ray Wenderlich team, and so I co-authored the Core Data by Tutorials book and the WatchKit by Tutorials book. I also released an app called Risk Presenter. So this uses the Pebble smartwatch to control your presentation. So technically I could have given parts of this presentation with a Pebble watch and advanced slides, things like that. This idea started out at a CocoConf, and then it turned into an actual idea, and then I shipped it, and it's actually pretty profitable, even with the limited market size of the Pebble, but it's still successful and still selling today. I'm not actively working on it anymore. I've since moved on to Apple Watch and things like that. In 2013, I spoke at 360 iDev when it was in the suburbs, and I gave a talk on the Pebble smartwatch and how to build apps for that. And so it's awesome to be back, 2 years later and give a talk about the next smartwatch. And so in that talk, I talked about the competitors, and within 2 years' time, all the other competitors have kind of dropped out or not doing well. And so it's really Pebble, Android Wear, and Apple. And I think we'll soon realize that Apple is kind of winning that market. So iOS notifications started in iOS 3. And when iOS 3 came out and push notifications were the new hot thing, there was a lot of internet flames about it. People kept saying they're intrusive, they're annoying, this is going to ruin the experience for the user. And in a lot of cases it did. And a lot of games or a lot of baitware, a lot of stuff like that, were using them as marketing, and that still happens today. And so you definitely need to be cautious with your notifications and not overdo it and only give users notifications that they want to see. But over time, since iOS 3, notifications have definitely increased in features. With iOS 7, we got silent background notifications, meaning your server can send a JSON payload to your app, and your app will wake up in the background and do some processing or some work. And that way, when the user actually launches your app, your Twitter feed, your Facebook feed, or whatever looks like it was already downloaded and updated. So you're not waiting on a spinner, so to speak. And then in iOS 8, last year, we got actionable notifications, meaning you can have custom buttons and perform things like in Gmail app. If an email comes in, you can archive it right there without actually launching the app. Or with iMessages or text messages, what I'm showing here, you can actually type right into the notification without leaving whatever you were doing. So if you're in Safari and you get a message, you can reply right there by pulling down on the banner. And so that was a killer feature last year. And then the next feature came with Apple Watch. And for me, that's blows everything else out of the water. It's the ability to actually design and build custom notifications, which we have never been able to do on the iPhone or the iPad. So I have this device called Canary. It's like an alarm system in one. It looks like a little black trash can. It was a Kickstarter project, and it basically uses geofences in your smartphone to arm itself. And then when you get home, it disarms itself. It tracks motion, and it'll trigger itself if it has motion recorded, stuff like that. And I have this device. And it's only an iPhone app. It doesn't have an Apple Watch app. But because the way it was set up, or Apple set up watchOS, if your app supports notifications on the iPhone app, notifications automatically work on the watch. You don't have to do anything. What you'll get is what you see here is a system standard kind of notification, which it does show your icon and your app name. It's kind of ugly, but it works. And so for Canary, every day I go to work, I usually when I get in, the first thing I have to do is go to a meeting or something. So my phone is in my backpack. I skate to work and I wear a backpack. And so I don't check my phone right away because I'm usually running into a meeting as soon as I get there. And so one day, I actually had a break-in attempt and that's my front door. There's a mail slot on it, kind of old school. And there was someone sticking their hand through my mail slot, and my phone went off and was going crazy, but I didn't have my phone on me. And so it would have been an hour or so before I would have seen that. My watch, on the other hand, I have on me all the time. I saw that notification right away. I knew something was up, so I went and checked my phone, and then I raced back home. And when I got home, thankfully, it was just a neighbor who had a little too much fun the night before. I just had to show them to the proper house, but that kind of proved it to me that it is possible that a notification would actually be a decent feature, or it can be a killer feature even. And so Canary itself hasn't customized this yet, and I hope they do in the future, but you could definitely see another button here for, call my wife or call the police or show me the picture. They could even show a snapshot of the activity if they wanted to, and I hope that's in their roadmap. But the whole point of this is just to say that notifications do have value to users. There's actual real-world cases where you want something right then, immediately, that's important, and having it on your watch makes it even more valuable. And so I'm going to quote Google. They're talking about Android Wear, but I think it's applicable to all these kind of wearable devices that Apple Watch is a part of. And so the quote is, "Phones often distract us and take us out of the world. Wearables provide much more compact experiences that are as short as possible and as fast as possible." So I think the takeaway here is to think action, not apps, which is different than from the iPhone world. Here's another quote that holds true for me. The vast majority of my interactions are with notifications. I use glances occasionally, but the last time I actually launched an Apple Watch app, besides development and debug, it's been a while. None of the apps provide a good experience to me. And so we're going to talk about short and long look notifications today. I'm going to show you how to test a notification, and then we're going to build a custom watch notification. So short and long look notifications are the new types of notifications that came with Apple Watch. This is a paradigm only for the Apple Watch. There's no such thing as short or long look on iPhone or iPad. And so the calendar app is a good example of this. They have a short look notification. So this will pop up when you get a notification. And so the way the OS decides that is if you're on your phone and your iPhone and you're actively using it, your notification will show there. If you're on your watch and you're actively using that, the notification will show there. If you're not actively using either of them and you have the watch connected, the notification will go to the watch. And what happens first is you'll get a haptic feedback, like a subtle tap, a little bit of vibration. And if you turn your wrist to look at it, what you'll see is this. This is the short look notification. On this screen, you don't have a whole lot you can do. There's about 3 things. So you can change the app icon. But if you change the app icon here, you're changing it for your whole app. So not a whole lot there. The second item is the title string from the notification payload. And so this you can definitely change, but it is a limited set space there. So you have to be careful on what you can put there. And then the last thing is the app name. So you can change the app name, but of course that changes your app's name. So you have to be careful about that. You can change the tint color. Right now the calendar one is red. And you change the tint color by going into the watch storyboard and changing the global tint color. And so once you've looked at the short look, if the user decides it keeps looking at it with their wrist in that position, it'll transition into a long look. And this is what the calendar long look notification looks like. And so at the top, you've got the sash. That's that red bar, and that's customizable. You can set that to any color or opacity you want. And then that white area and the gray area, that's kind of custom content. That's what you're free to customize as a developer. You can put labels, images, anything you want in there. You can't put interactive elements like a button, so to speak, but anything else is free game in there. And then after that, you've got custom actions. So this goes back to the iOS 8 actionable notifications. So these actions, to appear here, they have to be registered in a notification category, which you would do in the app delegate typically of an iPhone app or somewhere in there. And then the last item is a system action. And the system action is always going to be on every notification on the watch, and it's just dismiss. So here's some examples of short look notifications. It's Ancestry, Etsy, and Zara. And you can see they all have different app icons. They all have a different notification title, and they're using different tint colors, so green, red, and a white. And so this is kind of what you can do with short looks, and that's about it. And so the idea is not to put a lot of information here because you can't, but because it's a privacy reason. So when the short look comes up, other people can see that. And so they only want to show sensitive user data if the user continues to look at that notification. So here's some examples of long look notifications. Again, these are all custom notifications. So in the middle, you've got Instagram. And look at that. You can see your friend posted a photo, and you get that actual photo. On iPhone or iPad, you couldn't do this. You could get a notification, but to see that photo, you would have to tap that notification and then launch the app. And so right there, that's already a second or two of delay. It takes the user a little bit longer. They're less likely to tap on it. But on the watch, you're getting that picture right then, right there, without having to do anything. Twitterific is another good example. If you get a new follower, it'll show that person's avatar. And again, it's all customized. Here's some more long looks. Uber, SkyGuide, and New York Times, they're all using custom notifications. So SkyGuide is showing the picture of the event that's happening, that's overhead at the time. And then New York Times has a custom action button there, save for later. So if an article breaking news comes in and you think that's a story you'd be interested in, you can save that to read later. Here's some more long look examples. So deliveries is a good example of an app using a custom sash color. It's that teal color at the top there. And again, they also have a custom button there, archive. Hours, again, a stop timer. This is the destructive action if you're looking for trying to get it to be red to kind of signify this is a destructive action. And then Nike Plus also has, red for the person's name there, kind of customize the content. And then so two more examples are, again, another custom picture. The item's available, you get the notification, and it's a picture of the actual item. Whereas normally you'd have to launch the app to go see that item. So if the user sees the item, maybe they're actually interested in the item, now they'll actually go to the app. As before, if it just said item available, that's kind of like spam. Again, with Skype, you got the reply there, custom action. And so the app we're going to build today is called Pawsome, and it's an app for cat lovers. Basically, it allows you to, instead of every 30 minutes get up and stretch, every 30 minutes you get distracted and you're able to look at a cat picture. And so here's the iPhone app. It's a collection view, grid of cats. You tap on one, you get a full screen cat. And if you tap on that, you can dismiss it. It has an Apple Watch as well. Again, just a collection of cats. And so what I'm gonna show you now, and we're gonna kind of go through, is this custom notification. And basically, it's got the app icon, it's got a customizable content area, and it has a custom action, more cats. And so I'll show you how that works. So this is Xcode Beta 5. This is a loaner laptop that I got 20 minutes ago. Mine just died. So we're all looking forward for some pain here. So hopefully the demo gods are with me. So basically, this is just a simple iPhone app, collection view with cat pictures. Let me show you the Watch app. Again, simple app, but it's a good base app to build a custom notification off of. So first thing you want to do if you're doing a watch is learn how to be able to test it. So first thing I want to do is add a payload file to my project. And so you can do that by going to watchOS other, and you can just pick an empty file, and you can just call this whatever you want. So I'm going to call this example notification payload. And the key is to give it a special extension, APNS. You don't have to add it to any targets. It's just going to be used by the simulator. And so in here, you can put any valid JSON. And so I have this one already created here. The idea is that you're going to be mimicking what your notification provider would be sending anyways. And so that's this APS dictionary. So if you've done notification stuff before, this should be common to you. You've got your alert body and then the body, which is the actual string of the notification. What might be new to you is this category. So I'm using a custom category called Pawsome. And what that does is allow those custom actions. So for me, that's going to be more cats. For deliveries, that was the archive button. For New York Times, that was the read later button. And so you set up this category, and that allows you to use those custom actions. The thing is that we're using the simulator, and so the watch doesn't know about the code on the iPhone app that registered those categories. And so to mimic that, to show you those buttons, there's this special block here called WatchKit simulator actions. If you throw this block into your APNS file here and give it a title and identifier, you'll get those same buttons that you'd get in a shipping app where you know what the iPhone is doing. But this is just valid JSON. You can also put any kind of custom keys here. So you could put whatever you wanted here, and it would show up in your app when you actually receive that notification. So you can treat this as if it was a notification provider. It just happens to be a local file to Xcode for the simulator. And so to make use of that APNS file, the trick is to create a new scheme. And so you can duplicate the watch scheme that you already have, and if you edit that, you get options on how to show a notification. So if you go to the run, and then you can change watch interface to dynamic notification, and then you'll see any APNS files here. So if you have multiple notification categories, you can make multiple APNS files and have multiple schemes to test those notification categories. And so once you have that APNS file set up, you can test that notification. So I select the notification scheme, and now I'm just going to play it. And so you saw the short look, and then you saw the notification came up real quick. And then the custom action, which was all from that payload. So if we go back to the payload, and we add another button here, it will also work. And so that's how you can test notifications on the watch without having to have an app in the store with all your APNS certs and everything set up. Why this hasn't existed before, so you can test notifications on the iPhone, it's surprising because this is a killer feature that would make iPhone notification development way much easier. But on the watch, we do have it, thankfully. And so let me show you how to build one of these notifications. So it's pretty easy. You can just go to the interface storyboard for your watch. And what you want to do is grab a notification interface controller and throw that on your storyboard. And this alert label is a special label. It's automatically wired up to an IB outlet called notification alert label. It's probably too small for you to read, but it's up here. Just know that this outlet is wired for you. And that's how your notification payload will automatically update this label. So let me add an image to this. I'm going to set it to aspect fill, and I'm going to center it. And we can set this to, this is the text that will be updated by the payload, so I'll just make it clear that this isn't something I can control. I'm also going to center that guy. Make sure the lines wrap, so set the line 0. And just so it's different than the other one, because I'm kind of replicating the other one, let's give it a special color. And so the APNS payload, it's not going to know that this file exists, or this notification. It doesn't know how to use this until you set a category on it. So we had this Pawsome category. So I'm just going to borrow that one, rename that one. And so you tap on this arrow, just like it was the root view controller, and you can give it a name. And so I'm just going to give this the Pawsome name, which is the category we're using in that payload file. And now this one will be the notification used. So let me run that guy real quick. And so it was green. Again, it's not very complicated. Designing UI in the watch is a pleasant experience, but the ability to do custom notification is something we've never had before. We haven't had that on iPhone or iPad. So not taking advantage of this, it's a shame. And so if you go back to our keynote where we talked about new markets and new opportunities, notifications on the watch are a new market and a new opportunity that isn't really being taken advantage of yet. So what we just created is called a static notification. So we talked about short and long look notifications. Inside of your long look notifications, you've got two subcategories, static notifications and dynamic notifications. What we just created was a static notification, meaning no code is being executed. What you see on screen is what you're going to get besides that message label being replaced with whatever the payload is of your notification. You can't run code, you can't update things, that's it. But if you want to create a dynamic notification, which does have code, you can do that by selecting that notification category and checking this box has dynamic interface. And so in here, you can do the same thing. You can put an image, you can grab a label, and so we'll just set this to something. And so now with this class, you can associate it to a class. So I already have one here. Called notification controller. And with that class, you can now run code dynamically. So if I, let me move this category back before it uses, so it uses the right one. And so in my notification controller class, this is a subclass of WK user notification interface controller. And in here, it's pretty simple. I've got two outlets, one for the label, one for the image. So this is the label that's going to be shown from the payload and then the image of the cat. The way I'm pulling the cat is just using a random number, so don't worry about this. It's just giving me a random integer. And then I have this helper function called update display with notification user interface. And it takes the notification payload, gets the cat image name out of it, and the alert and all that, and updates the display. So that's what this label set text body is doing. Basically, all I'm doing is getting the text out of the notification payload to show it on screen. And the reason I want to show you this is because a lot of apps have local notifications and remote notifications. The APNS file only works with remote notifications. So if you have a local notification, you can just treat it as if it was a remote notification to test it. And one way to do that is just to take your local notification, which I've done here, and wrap it up in a user info dictionary and pretend like it's a remote notification. So that gives you an effective way to test both remote notifications and local notifications, even if your local notifications will never see an actual APNS JSON payload, so to speak. And so the next thing you need to really realize or know about is this completion handler. It's got this .custom enum going to it. If you set this to default, it will be the static interface. So right now, if I run this, we're getting the dynamic interface because we're telling Xcode to use custom. That's interesting. Let's try that again. Yeah, so right now we're using the dynamic interface, and each time I run this, you'll notice the cat picture is different. So let me run it one more time. So it's a different cat picture each time. Now if I go up here and I change custom to default, and run it, it's going to be the picture of my storyboard, which is hard-coded in there. So let me show you that picture real quick. It's this cat here in the dish drying rack. And so the reason you need a static before you can even build a dynamic interface is because if that dynamic interface takes too long to load or fails to load or is making a network request that times out, WatchOS will default back to the static interface. So you can't just create a dynamic interface without creating a static interface. And so this is an example of where that dynamic failed. I manually made it fail by calling .default instead of .custom to show that. The next thing that's kind of cool with watch notifications is actions. You can handle them within the actual WatchOS. So if I go to my interface controller, which is just my main controller, I've got this very small function called handle action with identifier. And all this does is get called when the user taps on a button. And so if the identifier is view cat's action, which is attached to that button, which was also in my APNS payload file, I pull out the cat image key as a string, and I've used that as the context, and I just pass it to this full screen cat image controller. And so if I run that guy, and then I tap on more cats, it'll launch the app. The app took the cat image and then showed it in this full screen controller. And so you can use these actions to do something like buy something or favorite a picture, anything like that. And you can run this code in the watchOS. You can also handle actions in the iPhone app, and depending on where the user took action on the notification, be it the iPhone app or the Watch app, that's where that code will run. Unfortunately, one of the problems with this whole thing is that notifications require a Watch app in order to work. So you can't just produce an app just for notifications. Unlike, I think that would be the real killer features if you didn't have to produce a whole app just to have custom notifications. There's a lot of apps that have notifications that don't need a Watch app, but can make use of notifications. Unfortunately, at this time, you still have to have a Watch app. Same thing with complications for watchOS 2. And so from my limited research and limited user analytics, the apps that have custom notifications, which I've got 3 of them now, have more engagement. So I'm tracking when users actually tap on one of those buttons in those notifications, and I can track that. I'm getting way more engagement on my custom notifications in Watch versus anything I ever did on an iPhone or an iPad. Again, this is just one guy's story, so but I think that's going to be the general trend. And so the big takeaway is really the think actions, not apps. So again, it's the complications, it's the glances, it's the notifications. The Watch app, to me, is kind of second fiddle. And so I just wanted to leave you with this, is that custom notifications are pretty easy. If I can do it on Xcode data with a loaner laptop that I got 30 minutes ago, there's no reason why you guys can't also do something way better than I just showed. And so at that point, I'll open it up to questions. There's 2 ways you can do it. The Apple Watch is a very small screen, so you should not be sending over, a multi-megabyte JPEG. So if you're using a compressed, small resolution version of the image, you could convert that to NSData byte stream, right? You can put that in your payload. With iOS 9, I think we're getting up to 4 kilobytes in payloads now. So if you know you can fit it to that size, you could do that. In Instagram's case, because I trace their network traffic, they're passing a URL, and then they go download. But it's one formatted for the watch. That's how I would recommend doing it. And so when that notification comes in, all they're getting is the URL and the text in that notification payload. And then the notification code runs. It does an NS URL session task, gets the image, updates the display, and then it shows. So the notification is sitting on that person's watch, waiting while that network request is happening in the background. And once it does happen, then the notification shows. And so that's why you have that static interfaces, because if that network request, for example, took way too long and timed out, then the static interface would be the default. So you have to be careful with that. Apple in the docs explicitly recommend not using network requests, but then all their examples have these crazy cool pictures and stuff. So it's kind of, I don't know what they're trying to say there. So there's not necessarily animations, stuff like that. It's kind of all static. You can do opacity, but what's behind it you can't really control. So the notification generally is going to appear when you're on your clock, right? So it's going to be mostly black. Most of the watch faces have a lot of black in them, right? So you can change the opacity, but other than that, that's really it. You can't really do parallax, So on the phone, the only thing you can add is the custom actions. And the only thing you can do there are buttons, and iOS controls the color and style of those buttons. I don't have a good example, but it's going to be a gray button with maybe I do. Let's see. Yeah, so here it's a free text form. with iOS 9, we all get this ability too. But just imagine the send button was wider than 2 of them. That's all you can really do. And then you can have up to 4. So you could have like reply, archive, delete, cancel, or something. And then on the watch, you can have up to 4 as well. And you can control the what text is shown in the button, and you have the option of setting one as a destructive action, which will be red text. But other than that, you can't control the buttons on the watch or the phone. So if you want to handle actions on the watch, then yes, you have to write code to handle them on the watch. If you don't want to handle them on the watch, they'll default back to the iPhone. So if you want actions at all, you have to handle that somewhere, and the iPhone would be where you should start with. All right, thanks guys, appreciate it.